Yeah, Lee, you ready?
Oh, yeah.
This being the time and place for the regular scheduled April 2023 Planning Commission meeting, I'd like to call us to order. Please call the roll.
Lawrence.
Here.
Gordon.
Here.
Tate.
Here.
Way.
Here.
Wynn.
Here.
Temple. Burris.
Here.
Height. Pepper.
Okay, we do have a quorum. For once, we have our whole commission here. Are there any corrections or additions to the minutes from the March 2023 meeting? If not, do I have a motion to accept these minutes as presented?
Motion for approval, second.
Motion by Mr. Pepper, okay, and second by
Eddie
Mr.
Pike.
Pike. All right, I got thrown off there. All in favor state aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, those minutes are approved. I'd like to take a moment to introduce the Planning Commission members and give a brief description of what we do and how this meeting is conducted. The commission has 9 members. 8 of us are volunteers appointed by the mayor for a 6-year term. We also have 1 member from the city council. My name is Kent Lawrence. Gary Borden is our vice chair. Larry Wade is our secretary. Other members is Eddie Pike, this is Francis Tate, Myrna Burrows, Joseph Wynn, Forrest Temple, and our council is Hunter Pepper. Members of the public seeking to get an item considered by the Planning Commission must send an application to the Planning Department not less than 21 days prior to this meeting. Unless otherwise specified, all applications for development approvals are the results of submittals by a private citizen seeking some change in their own property. In making our decision, a primary tool used by the Planning Commission is the One Decatur Comprehensive Plan. This is a general community plan for the city of Decatur and was adopted through a public process to formalize a vision for the future of the community that represents the interest and the will of all Decatur residents. In many of these cases, the Planning Commission does not have the final say. Zonings, annexations, vacations, sidewalk cafe license, and some resolutions all require additional approval by the city council before they become official. In those cases, the role of the Planning Commission is to advise the city council. The first part of today's meeting, well, I'm going to change a little bit. Normally, we would do zoning first, which is a public hearing, but I'm going to rearrange our agenda a little bit, and we're going to do the zoning last. We have 3 other requests that won't take but a few minutes. And one of those is a public hearing item. So in the public hearing item, these items are read separately and voted on after comments and discussion. If you wish to comment on an item, we ask that you come forward to the microphone, state your name and address, and make your comments. We ask that you keep your comments to 3 minutes or less. The first item in the public hearing today will be a minor plat. These are plats that have more than 3 lots, direct access to public service, and a topo provided for review. If you want to go through the first.
The first item is going to be replat of lots 1, 2, and 3 of Nucor Industrial Park. This is 73.68 acres, currently zoned M2 General Industry District. Applicant is Purite McAnally for Nucor Steel Decatur, LLC. The location is 913 Marrow Street Northwest. The request is to approve a minor plat. Proposed land use is industrial. One Decatur future land use is general industrial. And One Decatur street typology, Marrow Street Northwest is a local street. Conditions to be met: 1, recording fees; 2, signed sealed plat; and 3, copy of deeds. And a point of information: any relocation of utilities will be at the owner's expense.
Okay, do we have anyone from the public that would wish to speak to this request? If not, do we have a motion to approve this request?
Motion for approval.
Second. Motion by Mr. Peppers, second by Mr. Way. Any comments or questions from anyone on the commission? Please call the roll.
Lawrence.
Yes.
Gordon.
Yes.
Tate.
Yes.
Wade,
Yes.
Wynn,
Yes.
Temple, Burrows.
Yes.
Pike,
Yes.
Pepper.
Yes.
Okay, this minor plat is approved 9-0.
The next item will be our consent agenda. It is only one item this month. It is site plan 65223. It's 1.05 acres, currently zoned M1A Expressway Commercial District. The applicant is Purite McAnally for Bank Independent. Location is 1425 Beltline Road Southwest. The request is to approve a commercial site plan. Proposed land use is commercial, a bank. The one Decatur future land use is community commercial, and the one Decatur street typology, Beltline Road Southwest, is a principal arterial. Conditions to be met: 1, dumpster enclosure detail needed. 2, the wrong parking calculation was used. More parking spaces are needed. 3, the ALDOT affidavit is needed. And 4, a landscaping and lighting plan are needed as well. Point of information, any relocation of utilities will be at the owner's expense.
All right, do we have anyone from the public that would wish to speak to this request? If not, do we have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve?
Motion by Mr. Borden, second by Mr. Temple. Any comments or questions from anyone on the commission? Please call the roll.
Lawrence,
Yes.
Borden,
Yes.
Tate,
Yes.
Wade,
Yes.
Wynn,
Yes.
Temple,
Yes.
Burrows.
Yes.
Pike,
Yes.
Pepper.
Yes.
This is approved 9-0.
And the next request will be in other business. This will be Resolution 007-23, a name change approval. The location is in Foxwood Subdivision Addition 4. The request is going to be to recommend approval of a name change of McClellan Drive Southeast to Emma Drive Southeast to the Decatur City Council.
Okay, do we have a motion to recommend?
Motion.
Second?
Motion by Mr. Wade, second by Mr. Borden. Any discussions or comments from the commission? Please call the roll.
Lawrence,
Yes.
Borden,
Yes.
Tate,
Yes.
Wade,
Yes.
Wynn,
Yes.
Temple, Burrows.
Yes.
Pike,
Yes.
Pepper.
Yes.
And that will be recommended with a 9-0 vote. Okay, now we'll move back to the public hearing on the rezoning request. I'll just inform everyone that the council has a special call meeting at 4 o'clock. So we're gonna go as long as we can with this, and then if we get to 4 o'clock and we're not complete, we're gonna call a recess, let the council do their business, and then we'll come back into session. Okay?
This will be for rezoning 141423. It is 53 acres, currently zoned R2 Single Family Residential. The applicant is Magnus Capital Partners for Margaret Eister. Location is 2037 Moulton Heights Road Southwest. The request is to rezone 53 acres from R2 to R4. The new zone would be R4 Multifamily Residential District. The proposed land use is residential. The one Decatur future land use is mixed neighborhood. And the one Decatur street typology, Moulton Heights Road Southwest, is a local street. Comments from the zoning committee. The zoning committee voted unanimously in favor of this request.
Okay, we're gonna start with, there's a representative from Magnus Capital is gonna make a presentation on this request. And then we'll open it up for public comment after that.
Good afternoon. Vishal Arora from Magnus Capital Partners. I want to thank the Commission for having us this afternoon. I do have a presentation. Michelle, do you have it up? Yes, it's on screen. So just in the interest of time, I'm going to try to cover a couple of things this afternoon. The first is to introduce our firm to the Commission. The second is to talk about what we would like to do here. Without getting to site plan specifics per se, because I know it's a rezoning effort, I think it's still worth showing you some things that we've worked out. If you could turn to, so who is Magnus? Magnus, we are a Grand Rapids, Michigan-based development company that has been around for more than a decade. We have organized ourselves in a way to have a purpose. Our primary purpose, as outlined on page 3, is very simple. We want to be diligent about everything that we do. We don't take it for granted. We will be very detailed around our efforts. We want to do good by the community and by our stakeholders in general. We want to innovate. We want to adapt and work to update these communities that do welcome what we think we offer, which in our case is workforce housing. And that's what we've organized ourselves to do. So hopefully you'll find that our efforts that you hear this afternoon are consistent with that approach. The page in front of you, the most important thing to understand here is we organize ourselves on these 4 principles. The most important one by far is on the top left, is on integrity. I appreciate we haven't worked together yet before in a formal capacity. We have been working with staff for about a year now, just getting to know each other and seeing whether our ideas fits the One Decatur vision or not. And we will continue to make efforts towards transparency and ensure that you get the answers that you need to make the right decision about us. We appreciate it's not just about the land, it's also about who you're partnering with, and we do view this as a partnership at the end of the day. And that's what the 360-degree success point is meant to convey to all of you, is we do look at this as a true win for everyone at the table, from the residents to the neighbors to the community in general and our own stakeholders as well. And we think that's very possible. We are, as I mentioned, workforce housing focused. That is the theme that we consistently deliver upon. And we do choose sites, and this is maybe a good segue into why this particular site. It is near the Beltline, of course, on the west side of town. That is a major and important transit corridor for employment, which is the #1 reason why people choose where they live, proximity to the workplace. So that's something I wanted to convey to you on this slide. The next slide gives you an indication of where we have worked in the past, from coast to coast really, but today the overwhelming majority of our work is in the upper Midwest and then down here in the South. And that is purely focused on workforce housing, as I said. And we've been encouraged by the conversations, including the ones we've had with staff to date, that align with the city's future goals of developing a workforce, developing employer growth as well, and making sure housing is part of that overall solution. And we hope to do our part as part of this conversation. I'd like to skip forward to the slide called Living at Home Flats, if you don't mind, Michelle. What I'd like to, if you go one further, thank you.
Okay, sorry.
No, that's okay, I skipped forward a few pages. What I'd like to convey in these next few slides is a conversation around quality. There is a notion out there that workforce housing or any kind of potential subsidized or indirectly subsidized housing means poor quality. We'll talk about the definitional issues around subsidy later in our conversation, but I just wanted to share some actual photos with you of projects that we have built, that we do operate and we do own today, and what we hope to bring here also. So if you turn to the next slide, Michelle, you'll get some photographs of in-unit features. These are akin to Class A finishes. There's open floor plans, custom cabinets, stainless steel appliances, kitchen islands with under-mounted cabinets, full-size washer dryer, and ample storage in the units. And these are features you would typically see in a Class A product. Part of the way we're able to get to this point is because we are doing it ground up. We're not acquiring an old property and then trying to rehab it or reposition it. We are starting from zero, from the ground up. And that gives us a chance to really create a really interesting and high-quality program. A center point of our projects are the amenities. These are amenities you would typically only see at Class A properties. Bike storage, game rooms, fitness rooms with studios, like yoga studios attached to those fitness rooms, indoor and outdoor play spaces, rooftop terraces on the buildings, an on-site resident cafe, and then walking paths that go throughout the community to promote a healthier lifestyle. These are not amenities we have seen deployed or used rather in Class C or even Class B properties in cases, but definitively in the Class A space. And that really is our effort. Our hope is to deliver a high-quality product at an affordable price point. And that's why you see what you see. Again, the images you see in this presentation are actual photographs. Some of the ways that we deliver this, these conveniences is by being a little bit more modern and a bit more innovative, as I said at the very beginning. We have things like Wi-Fi in the common spaces. We have a magnetic key fob entry, so your unit access is secured, as is building access. It is secured with your resident issued key fob and keyed only to the spaces you're allowed to go to. All of us receive a lot of packages these days. There is a secure package room, again, through keyed entry for Amazon, FedEx, UPS, whatever have you, as well. And these are just some of these modern conveniences that we are bringing into our developments. Work from home seems to be here to stay in some way or the other. We're not quite sure how much, but we know that it is happening more than it used to. And so a lot of our spaces are, our community spaces are programmed to allow for functional work from home environments. And again, on the left are some images of what that looks like. Our residents tend to have a lot of pets, so we are pet friendly. We think that's a positive feature. Surprisingly, we're about 50-50, dogs and cats. I wouldn't have guessed that initially, but it is where we are. But we do our best to cater to pet owning residents and to their pets. So we have the appropriate way stations, we have outdoor dog parks, all on site, again, just to facilitate a better living environment. We are a workforce housing platform, as I mentioned. To do that successfully, we have to be attentive to what the workforce needs and what employers are looking for. This slide is meant to give you a snapshot of some things that we do host at our properties, such as financial literacy classes, resume review services, if you'll get your resume reviewed before you go on to an interview. And then we do some fun things like fitness classes and artist painting classes. We'll do trivia nights. We'll have job fairs on site sometimes, but it's all, again, to facilitate to focus on the workforce population, which tends to be fewer kids, young professionals. They are all working, they all have income, and they all need something to get a foothold into the economy and into the workforce. So that's part of our programming is seen on this, is summarized here on this page. I mentioned at the top of this conversation that we try to solve for a 360 degree of success. One way we do this is by partnering with local businesses. We feel very strongly about local businesses being the pillars of every community. One way we deliver that to our residents is we partner with those local businesses. It can be as simple as discount programs and affiliate and loyalty programs, but it can go deeper than that as well. And it can be working with large employers in the area that have a preference to see some of their employees living at our sites. And so we have ways in which we try to create those partnerships and deepen those ties. That's very important to us. And we have already reached out to, I know the chamber is here with some sizable representation. We've already reached out to them to begin the conversation about how we can go about making this a successful project, so it doesn't feel like it's on its own in an island, as it were, and really is part of the community. If we could flip forward to the next page, I'm just going to give you a little bit of a little segue, I think, into the next stage before you need to wrap, sir. Is this is ultimately a rezoning conversation. I thought it was worth framing this in the context of the need. And I know we've talked about it before with staff. There is a significant need, as is called for in the One Decatur plan, to improve housing choices in the city. Without housing, both for sale and for rental, in our case rental, it is a major obstacle for long-term economic development. So we look at our job as a partner with the city to do our part to deliver the housing portion of the equation, so to speak. So to that end, I wanted to share with you on the next slide some of the research we've been doing around actual jobs and actual incomes of residents that would actually live here. So it doesn't feel hypothetical, it feels a bit more rooted in reality. There are 7 examples on this page. I won't go into the detail, but they do sit within the income ranges we expect at the property in terms of an AMI, as I heard the commission referring to earlier. And these are real examples to maybe go into during our subsequent Q&A period. And then lastly, I will point you to the site plan on page 22, which again, this is just a draft site plan, not part of the rezoning application as such, but I wanted to give you an idea as to what we were starting with. And the most salient feature I'll point out here are the following. One is there is a significant setback left off on the east side there next to the R3 single family. That was very intentional, given the historical considerations. We also just candidly think it's appropriate. We really think that it's good to be neighbors, but you don't have to be super close together. You've got 52 acres to play with. You can move it around a little bit. So, and we like to keep as much of the natural context as there. There is a wonderful mature tree stand all along that boundary. So this site plan does appreciate that, respect it, and then pushes any developments off to the west of that. There is parking lot next to that tree line, so the nearest building is quite a distance away from the eastern lot line. Again, that was very intentional, out of respect for the neighbors, but also for respect of our future residents. We assume they would like to have a little bit of buffer themselves also. And then lastly, I'll just point you to the usable acreage conversation that I heard earlier. There is, as you can tell, some significant wetlands on the property, both running effectively from the east to the west, but then also down the southwest corner, a significant water body or wetland condition was discovered there. Our intention is to work around it and with it, not through it and disrupt it. And our eventual development plans will reflect that. We think it's appropriate, and we think it just makes the development a more natural fit as opposed to kind of raising the land and just pretending it didn't exist in the first place. So we'd like to work with the natural boundaries as presented. And so this just gives you a little snapshot as to what that might start to look like. And the very last slide, I think I'm just cutting it a little bit close, is a preliminary rendering of that first phase there. And you can kind of see the distance from the single family to the right on the east to the parking lot in the building, and also the future phases, if they were to be developed, are noted as residential, but also shows you the distance they are from any single family to be aware of. I think I flew past that pretty quickly, but I was trying to make your 4 o'clock
Okay.
deadline, so I will turn it over to you. Sorry, I lied. I have one last thing for you. I
Okay.
did also provide a supplemental PDF in the packet that talks about, it's effectively a Q&A on what is workforce housing. So some common FAQ type questions that we can talk about later on
Okay.
if it comes to it.
All right.
That's all I have.
Okay, so we got about 5 minutes. Want to take a couple?
Sure.
Okay. So I'm going to open it up now to people that would wish to speak for or against this request. Okay. Jeremy's going to go first. No.
Would you like me to?
Yeah, just sit down. Yeah, please.
Stand by me.
You don't want to.
Yeah. Hey, good afternoon. Thanks for having us here today. Employers, existing.
Jeremy,
Oh, sorry.
Name, address, and all that.
Jeremy Nails, 1506 Blackhall Lane. I'm really here on behalf of Morgan County Economic Development Association for my remarks. So we work with new and prospective companies every day that are looking at this area, looking at growing. And the one thing that always comes up is housing. What is available for housing? Especially apartments, as they're looking to recruit and retain and bring people here and employ people. Just recently, this week or last week, Crystal Brown was able to get me some information on all the proposed developments that are coming into this area for the First Solar company that is building right across the line. They're going to be employing 700 people. They realize that Decatur is the closest residential community for their employers, and we're right here. So they were excited about the potential for this development. I did introduce it to them. And as stated before, we haven't had much residential or apartments built in 15 to 20 years. And we're trying to catch up on that. Many instances, I know where employees, interns, contractors have moved to areas east of Decatur. They get settled there and they move there full time. So affordable housing could fill a gap for all the workers, in my opinion. The middle income employees that might not can find or even afford a place with some of the amenities that have been mentioned here today. This development would be attractive to many residents, many industry sectors. We mentioned healthcare, nurses, assembly line workers, all of our manufacturing companies that employ thousands of people here in this area. And if done properly, could really fill a need in our community and for the many sectors that rely on our essential workers in their everyday needs. So, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we'll take one more. 357. We're gonna push them.
Yes, I'll be fast. I have a conference call at 4:30 anyways. But hi, I'm Cheyenne Sanchez. I live at 445 Sherman Street Southeast, Decatur, Alabama. I'm here on behalf of Young Professionals of Decatur. I'm the president and founder. So this opportunity is so exciting for us because we have a database of almost 300 young professionals that have come to our events over the past 2 years. And so many of those young professionals work here in Decatur, but they may not have the income to buy here in Decatur. So several of them live in Madison, Huntsville, but they work here. And so when it comes to apartments and housings and them being able to live here and create a community here, it's very difficult for them because there's nowhere for them to go. My niece specifically, she graduated from Austin. She's now working at 3M and she's renting in Florence. Because there's nowhere safe or good for her to rent here. And I saw that 3M was on one of the proposed partnerships. And so that, it's just such a great opportunity. I have several friends that work at Nucor and they rent in Huntsville just because of the amenities of the apartments that are in Huntsville. And so just such a great opportunity for our young professionals here in Decatur. And there's so many of us. And I think you don't see a lot of our faces all the time because they're getting off work and they're driving to wherever they're living, which is not here. And the goal is for them to live here and to spend their money here and to go eat at our local restaurants, go shop at our local stores. I really think this is a great idea. So, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so we're gonna adjourn for however long it takes the council, which won't take very long. We can probably trust them to leave our paperwork up here. Okay, yes.
Motion to adjourn.
All in favor, state aye.
We'll call the meeting to order. Dane Shaw will lead us in our invocation and pledge.
Father, we are thankful for this time to come together as a city to make decisions that impact all of our citizens. And we thank you for your wisdom, and we give you all the glory in Jesus' name. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thanks, Dane. All right, we have two agenda items, and thank you to the Planning Commission for letting us do this. They were time-sensitive items from follow-up from yesterday's meeting. So, sorry, first off, roll call.
Wagner.
Here.
McMaster.
Here.
Jackson. Pike.
Here.
Pepper.
Here. All right, Herman, our first item is ordinance 234553, declare surplus city land to be used for proposed Ingalls Harbor LLC proposed project.
Okay, of course, this was introduced yesterday. When you lease property, you have to declare it surplus, meaning the city does not need it. So there's no change from yesterday. That's what it does. It just declares this particular property that you have now approved being leased to be used for this development.
So moved.
Second. Motion by Mr. McMaster, second by Mr. Pepper. Any discussion? And this is the city-owned property, not the Decatur Utilities property.
That's right.
That will come
It's the
later.
5.268
Yep.
acreage.
All right, any other discussion? Roll call.
Wagner.
Aye.
McMaster.
Aye.
Pike.
Aye.
Pepper.
Aye.
Ordinance 234553 is approved 4-0, and then ordinance 234554 approved general obligations warrants series 2023.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Pepper, second by Mr. McMasters. Mr. Marks.
Basically, it was introduced also yesterday. It approves the borrowing of $35 million, authorizes the mayor and the city clerk and the council president to sign certain documents that will issue what's called warrants, which means we owe money. It's like a mortgage, except it's called, when you do it for a city, it's called a warrant. So that's what this does. It just finalizes what y'all began yesterday.
All right, we do have a motion and a second. Any discussion? 3.886%, 25-year, and we're deferring interest until 2028. And these are for, there's a lot of people here, so I want to make sure everybody knows. These are for, there's a lot it could be used for, but we have 4 major projects. Some are tied to the Aquadome, but I would say the 4 projects some of these funds will go to are the Modus Road softball, baseball facility, our rec center that will go at Wilson Morgan, plus the master plan, some of the master planning that was involved in that. Some improvements at Point Mallard that have to do with pickleball and potentially tennis and an event center. and then DYS's new facility. So,
I'll add to
Yeah.
found out today that the market has switched to the worst by 20 basis points.
but
So
we're in at
we're in
386.
at 386. Sometimes it's better to be lucky than good.
Yeah.
Another point of information, just a few months ago, the city council passed a resolution to increase lodgings tax by 3%. And it's hopeful that we'll be able to take care of the debt service with those funds. Is that?
A good portion of it, yes, sir.
I would say that was not the intention of the increase of lodging tax, but it is good to point out that that's certainly a benefit of it.
All right, any other discussion? All right, roll call.
Lyden.
Aye.
McMaster.
Aye.
Potts.
Aye.
Pepper.
Aye.
All right, that ordinance 23-4554 is approved 4-0. Anything else from directors, mayor?
No, sir.
Anything else from council?
We should do these double features more frequently with planning online.
Anything else? We're adjourned. Thanks.
Make a motion to adjourn. I don't have to have a motion to reconvene. do I? All right. Okay. All right, who would like to go next? Remember, state your name and address and make your 3-minute comments.
Okay, Sydney Taylor, 1104 4th Avenue. I'm here representing the Entrepreneurial Center. So the eCenter serves entrepreneurs, small businesses, and young people who could all benefit from projects like the one that's up for discussion today. We also see a huge need to help our growing workforce. So kind of to piggyback off of what Cheyenne said, if we want the community to work in the area, we need to provide housing for them also in the area. And housing like this with the different amenities is just something that we don't have to offer them yet. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Crystal Brown, 1904 Weatherly Circle, Southwest Decatur, representing the Chamber of Commerce. I would only add one thing to what Jeremy said in an effort not to be redundant. The task of the Residential Development Task Team at the Chamber has been to find quality developers to come and build projects here in Decatur. And we believe, after reviewing Mr. Aurora's project and his company, that we have found one to build affordable workforce housing. That's important. I think he hit the nail on the head on slide 18, I believe it was, where he said it's an impediment to economic development or residential development for sure when we don't have multiple options in residential, for those that are starting out their careers in the workforce, such as teachers, nurses, firemen, policemen, and such. So we would appreciate your consideration, favorable consideration. Thank you.
Thank you.
Carol Taylor.
2007, 8th Street Southwest. I am highly opposed to this. 8th Street is like a racetrack now. They do, and there's a stop sign at Runnymede. But they do 50 and 60 going down 8th Street. And I'd like to ask you a question. Can I ask him a question? For the presenter?
Well, you can ask
Okay.
us and we'll get your question
He
answered
said
at some point.
subsidized housing, meaning what?
Well, we'll answer that in the end. Basically, my understanding is a tax credit type, and we'll get that explained before we adjourn.
Okay. Well, I just would like you to know that this doesn't need to be in a neighborhood. It needs to be out somewhere. And we are highly opposed to it.
Thank you.
Hello, Jessica Birch, 1500 Vest Street Southwest. I am here just speaking on all young professionals. I'm a young professional in this community, and unfortunately, we have to seek housing elsewhere because Decatur does not support young professionals at this time. We don't have affordable housing for young professionals getting started. Young professionals getting started do not make much money, and we have a lot of student loans. So I think that affordable housing would be great because you think affordable housing and you think whatever impoverished or someone in need, but a lot of times these are the fabric of our community. These people are nurses. These people are patient care aides at Decatur Morgan. I sit on the board for Centers for the Developmentally Disabled, and we have 300 employees that have to live in other counties because we do not have housing, safe housing, family-friendly housing for them. And so it's a constant need that I'm seeing that we need to seriously consider because we have some great individuals in our community that support us and work in our community but can't live here because we can't support them. So I would highly encourage you guys to consider this. Thank you.
What was your name again? Jessica Birch.
Anyone else? Okay. Okay, I'm sorry, come ahead.
I'm not a public speaker, but this is Stonegate Village on steroids right here. I live in that neighborhood.
Okay, first off, I'm gonna have to ask you to state your name and address.
Mike Garfield, 2025 Malton Heights Road.
Okay.
I mean, what worries me is it's going to wind up, if you want to build housing, why don't you do it the right way? Decatur has nothing like this. Build them houses they can live in. And I don't know where all these speakers come from. I've never heard of any of these organizations. They don't live in this country.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay, we had the question on what kind of subsidy is this? Would you like to try to answer that question for us? Yes, please.
Right. So there's a misunderstanding when one says affordable housing, it's the same as Section 8 subsidized voucher-based housing. To be crystal clear here, the way we are able to generate this project is through tax credits. These tax credits are in exchange for us pledging for a period of 30 years, to answer a question that was asked earlier as to how long this lasts for, to provide income-based support, which is to say, based on your income is how the rent is set. And that's what page 20 of the presentation that I had sent helps identify, is examples of occupations and wages, of incomes of people living at the property. There is no physical difference between the units. It is simply the amount of rent we're allowed to charge is based on income. And so I think that's probably the most important thing to take away is that it is income based. You must have income to live with the property. Page 20, just to kind of put a finer point on it, on average is roughly a $17 to $19 per hour wage amongst those 7 examples pulled from the community. So just as to put a finer point on that. Did I answer the question?
I think so. Did that end? Okay. Do you have a follow-up question you'd like to ask?
All right, if it's based on income, if someone makes $30,000 a year, how much will they rent it?
Well, I can tell you based on what we pulled together. At Turner Industries,
You're not gonna find somebody at Turner.
there's a janitorial position that was available that works out to roughly $16 an hour, and their rent for a single person household would be around $920.
Okay.
These are not rents that we set, to be crystal clear. We are simply following.
Okay, it's still subsidized housing.
Yeah.
It is income-based, income-based housing. So there are some, let's sort of kind of expand that further. There are, as we both know, plenty of programs out there that allow you to live without income and be fully subsidized or heavily subsidized. We are not that.
Yeah, the council's gonna do whatever they want.
Oh, okay, thank you. Anybody else that would like to speak?
Yeah, he acts like this is gonna be for fancy professionals and all this. Well, you got Sawmill right here buzzing and all kind of racket and noise. You know, we know what this is gonna turn into.
Okay.
That's what's gonna turn into. Y'all think y'all would never-
Okay, anybody else would like to speak? Okay, if not, do we have a motion to recommend?
I need,
Okay, we'll have questions after we get a motion on the floor.
Motion for approval.
Second.
A motion by Mr. Pepper, second by Mr. Temple. Now, anyone on the commission that has questions or comments, now would be the time for those. You want to start this time?
go ahead.
Go ahead.
Okay. I noticed that, first of all, phase 1, 265 units. You all also have phase 2, phase 3. How many units will go in phase 2 and 3?
So the phase 1 that we've shown you is an example of what we've been working on to date with staff. This is not a site plan approval discussion per se. It was more to illustrate what a phase 1 could look like. We have a lot of work to do, candidly, with staff to get to a phase 1 approval, and for that matter, a phase 2 and phase 3. So I'd rather not get hung up on the count of phase 2 and phase 3, but rather ask us to focus on 2 other items instead. One is who we are, and I'm happy to answer additional questions on that front. It's our first conversation. And the second is the rezoning itself. Is it appropriate for this to go to the R4 designation that we're seeking? And if that is a yes, we'd be happy to continue to work with staff towards the appropriate phasing and density count that would be
All right,
for
I
the
think
site.
it's important when you talk about rezoning an area backed up to a single-family resident, it is important to know how many units we are talking about. The next thing I would like to know, what percentage will be subsidized in phase 1 of the housing?
So I think we're a little bit early to talk about percentages, and as we are with hard number of units as such. And again, it's something, it's just too early for us to commit to how much is subsidized, how much is not subsidized, or affordable and market rate, and it's just too early for that conversation. What's important for us is to demonstrate that I think we have a program that is considered appropriate for the one Decatur plan in the context for the area or otherwise.
I just have a follow-up question. Can you give us an example of what your normal percentages would be? I see when you
Sure.
pulled the map up here earlier, you had some other locations that were on there. Could you give us an example of what your normal percentage would be of subsidized or not subsidized?
Absolutely. So we have, our existing projects are as low as approximately 70% affordable and 30% market rate. It's on the low end, and at the other end is 100% affordable. So somewhere between just to pick a history as an example, 70 to 100% is what we've done to date.
How many acres are usable there, not counting the marsh, the wetland? How many acres are usable?
Richard, do you want to estimate that based on what you've seen in our diligence so far? I'll ask Richard to come up with.
Richard Humphrey, Purette McAnally. I don't have an exact acreage on the wetlands area, but in general, we're probably looking in the neighborhood of 45 to 48 acres would be usable in general.
But we're looking to rezone the whole 53 acres.
Yes. Yes, that is the request.
Another question?
You go ahead, then I ask another one, yes.
I had a question for you. You went over some amenities in your presentation. They were really nice. Is that a typical offering, or are those amenities that you presented to us going to be proposed for this site?
That's a great question, and thank you for asking it. It's a debate we have a lot internally, so let me just share with you where we are on that front. There are certain amenities that will be delivered without question. I'll walk you through those in just a moment, and there are others that are dependent upon our further research in the area and what seems to be appropriate based on our conversations and research. What will definitively be on site as amenities are an on-site leasing office, a gym, rooftop terraces. You will have outdoor dog parks. You will have a walking trail around the property. Those things are sort of, in our minds, non-negotiable as it were in terms of resident amenities. Sorry, excuse me, there's a community room as well, which is some of that co-working space I mentioned before as well. So those things are sort of given as a sort of our staple amenity offering. Some of the other things that you saw mentioned in that presentation are things that we have done before, but not in every single property. It just depends on what's appropriate for a given property. For example, we're always trying, so we put a pickleball court in one of our properties, and we're seeing how that goes. It's not across all of our properties. It's not a standard program matter for us, but we are seeing how responsive it is and how well it's used. Our projects have thus far been in Michigan. The climate's a little bit different from down here, and so we have some indoor amenities like an indoor dog park, for example, that is appropriate for up there and may not be as relevant down here. So there's sort of a second category. If that answers your question.
Yeah, you just base your decision on what after phase 3 will be done, or what point will you add more amenities?
So we will look at this with staff as we develop the phase 1 site plan, but the goal is that each phase is supported on its own, as it were. There will be naturally some shared amenities, as there should be, like an on-site leasing office would be one for the entire community. But there may not be a single gym large enough, for example. We may have to supplement that with additional gym or other formats as we continue to develop.
As far as management, you said on-site leasing. Do you have resident management?
These are employees of ours that are there full-time.
So that answered my question, but for clarity, so you're the developer, but you also continue to manage this through the life of the commitment?
That is true. We develop and we also manage ourselves, yes.
Okay.
And that team is is in-house for us. We expect for a property of this size, and I'm just going to speak to the approximation of phase 1 for the moment, we would expect at least 5 to 7 full-time employees between the leasing team and the maintenance team to be there full-time.
Do you have, excuse me,
Go ahead.
Under your contract with the federal government on subsidizing, nowhere getting around it. Do you have the option 15, 20 years down the road that you can sell the property?
Well, to be clear, there's always an option to sell a property, to be clear. But what the 30-year restriction I mentioned earlier is not something that is mutable. It's recorded with the deed. So that is not even if I did disappear and somebody else bought the property from us, which is not what we intend to do, they would be subject to the same restriction for the life of the agreement.
Is it in writing, the percentage of the subsidized project? Or is it left up to you and your staff?
No, when we make our application for the tax credits, we must apply with the percentage you're describing, how much is affordable versus how much is market rate, and that is written into that same agreement, and that is what we are held to, year in, year out, year in, year out.
And I did not understand, you still give me the percentage again of the subsidized.
So if by subsidized, you're referring to the affordable rents?
The rent is
affordable
going to be
units?
subsidized, give me the percentage again in this unit 1.
So
Phase one.
I cannot give you an exact percentage for this phase 1 at this point, at this particular point in time. I can point to you to other projects we have done in the past in which they have been around 70% affordable at one end of the spectrum, and on the other end of the spectrum, they've been 100% affordable and no market rate renters in those properties.
Okay, so at this point, you do not have an agreement with the federal government for the subsidies,
We
is
do
that right?
not. We do
Okay.
not. And we cannot, because we first have to get to site plan approval, which would entail a rezoning and hence discussion.
So at what point do you apply for that credit?
We will be applying, assuming we reach successful consideration with Commission and Council for this project. We expect to apply for those credits later this year, in the second or third quarter, and then it goes through its typical application process.
That's something you would be granted that before you went to site plan?
It would sort of happen in conjunction with, actually. Yeah.
Let me just say this. I do not agree with affordable houses. My problem is where it is located, to rezone that area from single family to R4.
So, let me see if I could respond to you with the following, I guess. One is, we are taking the lead, as it were, from the one Decatur plan to start with, right? So we're sort of trying to follow that declared pattern and intention for land use and not change it. The second thing that we're trying to do is show the commission and show the community that we are trying to develop with some sensitivity to exactly what you're describing, which is you do have single family near you, and there is a history, and I'm fully appreciative of that. Causes some additional sensitivity. And hopefully in this conversation you've seen, if by no other particular feature, our idea of exaggerating the setback on the eastern lot line and keeping that mature tree stand in place. We are actually very aware of the single family context. In fact, I'll go one step further just to kind of put a finer point on it. When you go into that neighborhood, we went as far as to try to imagine and understand physically how far the nearest building would be standing in someone's backyard and whether a shadow would be cast upon their backyard. I don't think anybody wants a shadow in their backyard. The way the site plan lays out right now, no one would have a shadow in their backyard. And that's just a handful of homes on that eastern edge. But it was important for us as part of, I mentioned to you at the top of my earlier remarks, we are diligent. We do our homework. We do try to, do good by the community. And land use is a tricky topic. I understand that. But our job is not to sort of convince of land use, but rather to ensure that the commission and the community in general feel comfortable with us. And to that end, I'd be happy to provide letters of reference from other municipalities that we've worked with that seem to have found favor in the way we approach these thorny problems and issues, and as extended to staff before, welcome to come visit us in Michigan and see some actual properties and visit with some actual staff and even meet some of our residents if you wish, and see how we actually are doing things. We do believe we're not perfect, but we do believe our intentions are met with as much vigorous action as possible. So,
One more question, I'm through. Will you have the option during your 30 years to go in there and change the percentage?
no.
You are sure?
Yes. Change the percentage of affordable versus
Right.
unaffordable? I do not believe so. I'm happy to triple check because I do want to be diligent and do my homework on that front, but I would like to confirm that with you separately.
Any other questions? No further questions, please call the roll.
Lawrence,
Yes.
Gordon,
Yes.
Tate,
No.
Wade,
Yes.
Wynn,
Yes.
Temple,
Yes.
Burris.
Yes.
Pike,
Yes.
Pepper.
Okay. So that will be recommended to the council with a 7-1 vote. Okay. We have no further business before us, so we are adjourned. Thank you everyone for working with us through this.